Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. It's your boy Kenny. This is Fandom Frequency, where we get into the entire multiverse of pop culture. We get into all the different stuff, man. Music, anime, TV, movies, everything in between. We get into it around these parts. So make sure you're clicking all the buttons below the video and everything like that. Join our awesome and positive community today, where we like to get into all this nerdy goodness. But with no further ado, y'all know the reason why we're here, and we are here to discuss the latest finale, the finale of the latest season of The Mandalorian, baby. Episode 8, Season 3 has come to an end. It has been a little bit of a controversial season, to say the least. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting discussion to be had for sure, man, in those comments below. So I definitely want to hear all y'all thoughts about it as we get into this discussion here. But just getting into my personal overall thoughts on this episode in particular and the season, and we'll get more into the nitty-gritty details as we recap the episode and the season itself a little bit. But overall, I really dug this episode and actually think this was definitely one of the stronger episodes of the season, hands down. The whole way, this episode actually felt like a two-parter, really. With the last episode, it almost could have just been one really long, like hour, 80-minute, hour and 20-minute episode or something like that. But either way, it picks right back up where everything left off, with Bo-Katan and everyone trying to make their way out of there and make a move and get some reinforcements coming in and make a move against Moff Gideon to take out those Imperial remnants left behind there that are trying to occupy Mandalore, that have mined all the Beskar for their armor and everything like that. You got those those Stormtrooper Commando type dudes, those Mandos that the Mandalorians that used to work for the Empire and everything back in Star Wars Rebels. I think is coming back full circle here, and the whole way that they were implemented in the episode, I definitely enjoyed and dug the way that they were actually able to shoot targets and actually were able to do things and weren't completely incompetent like a lot of the Stormtroopers and all those kind of guys that we've seen throughout the entire history of the Star Wars lore. I mean, the Star Wars franchise up until this point. So that definitely was a really good change of pace here. And I really loved getting to see Grogu and Din Djarin really team up, Mando himself, and really go out there. And Grogu really actually contribute to the overall conflict and actually kick some ass and take some names and actually hold his own in the whole overall struggle. And at times, and in a certain way, actually went back and saved Din from actually getting tortured and whatnot. So it all came back full circle from the last season. In this season here, with the last finale of season 2, where Din went to go rescue Grogu, and they ended up having Luke Skywalker show up, except no Jedi showing up this time, strictly Mandalorians against Moff Gideon and the Empire itself. But love the way that Grogu and Din Djarin got the team up there and have the whole father-son, adventure. And it definitely had those New Hope vibes to it when they were making their way through that underground base there that they set up shop in Mandalore over there. So really, really dug all that stuff. And the action itself was so well done. Some really, really good action. I think the special effects for this episode and all the episodes, for the most part, has been very, very well done, at least in my personal opinion. I do think some of the other series that came out last year, like Kenobi, sometimes even in Book of Boba Fett, I do think the special effects looked a little bit dodgy at times. I do think that you can definitely tell they're in the volume, and they're not necessarily like in this more realistic looking environment in kind of the first 2 seasons of Mando that they were really able to bring forth in the Mandalorian show so efficiently. And in Andor, it was all like real life locations and sets for the most part. So didn't have any of that kind of stuff going on too much. A little bit of CGI when you had the Imperial cruisers and the TIE fighters and things of that nature. But when it wasn't spaceships or things of that nature, lasers, it was all practical effects or stunts, sets, and real life locations. So that definitely brought that real gritty vibe and that real three-dimensionality and lived-in feel that was in the original trilogy and just classic Star Wars in general that they've definitely gotten away from prequels and beyond. So really good to see that coming full circle around in Andor. But I'm really hoping, I really dug the special effects for this one and think they did a really good job with it. And overall, think that it was well done, and I think they did a pretty good job with that. And yeah, the whole Moff Gideon fight and reintroduction of his character was cool. I do wish we had more of him throughout the season, though. But overall, his part in this was really cool. Getting to see him get down with Bo-Katan, and everything like that. Really cool. Love the whole Mandalorian kind of inspired thing he's got going on there. All my Star Wars Clone Wars fans, y'all know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so really dug this episode. I thought it was a pretty strong finish to the season that has had a little bit of a bumpy road, to say the least, and we're definitely going to get into some of those mixed elements of the season in general. But I definitely enjoyed the season. I definitely enjoyed the episode overall, but definitely think there were some definite weak points. And one thing I will say as a negative for this episode, though, getting into it, just getting those negatives out of the way, because there's a lot more positive really here. I definitely think the runtime should have been a little bit longer for this episode, especially being the finale, being the culmination of everything we saw leading up to this. I do think they could have used 5 to 10 more minutes to really get a little more character building, get some more resolution between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin. They had so much setup between their friendship and their ally and being allies and really working together here throughout the season. I thought they were building that up pretty nicely, but didn't really land that plane in that regard, and I don't really think they landed that storyline necessarily as strong as they could have. In general, I loved all the stuff going on with Grogu. I had a blast learning more about what actually happened in Order 66, seeing him actually grow as a Force-sensitive person, learning the Mandalorian culture as a young kid, but really getting into the fight, really getting into the struggle, and contributing to the proceedings, as they say, and really actually having a role and really having a part to play in everything going on with the Mandalorians trying to retake their land and him traveling along with his pops. Everything in that regard I thought was really, really strong, and really loved everything they did with Grogu throughout the season. I had a little bit of trepidation at first, thinking they were going to do too much of the cutesy stuff, but I think they balanced that in the humor very well with real character building, real character growth, really having Grogu step up, use his abilities that we've learned about over the last couple years. He was apparently training with Luke, because we've had a little bit of a time jump between seasons 2, Book of Boba Fett, and season 3 here of The Mandalorian. So definitely wanted to fill in those blanks for those of you that might be joining us for the first time. Don't keep up with necessarily all those background details. We got you covered. And I'm not talking about the website, y'all. We got the real facts around here. But no shade, just saying. But anyways, getting back on track here. Stay on target. So getting back to it. But yeah, so loved everything they were doing with Grogu this season. And as we recap some of the bigger events here, mostly it was just the Mandalorians trying to retake their land. Take the Imperials out, but Din Djarin was taken captive and everything like that, was disarmed and everything, and didn't have his weapons and whatnot, so it was up to Grogu and the gang to save him, and Grogu saved him. He did. In IG-12, he came up on these fools and was hitting the freaking no button like he was DJing at the club, man. No. He had that shit at like 90 BPMs, bro. He was fucking doing it. Nah, I'm just playing. He wouldn't even do 90 BPM. That's some hip-hop shit. But anyways, I digress from the audio nerd out there. But yeah, so Din Djarin's captured, but a boy Grogu comes in with IG-12 and saves the day, baby, and kicks those fools' asses, kicks some ace. And they continue on throughout there, and now he's like, all right, well, we got to get Moff Gideon. We got to get to his control center. I think I can figure out how to get to the control room. You're coming with me, Grogu. I need you to step up and be brave for me, boy. We're gonna do some shit right here. So they're trying to make their way through the rest of the base and figure out where Moff Gideon's hiding at. And meanwhile, oops, clicked the wrong thing there. Meanwhile, you got Moff Gideon out there. He's over there watching them on the maps and everything, and knows exactly the location of where Din Djarin and Grogu are at. And he's like, oh shit, the Mandalorian has escaped. And I love how he calls him the Mandalorian. You know what I'm saying? Almost like reinforcing the fact that maybe the show's title does imply that it is truly about him, the Mandalorian. But we'll get to more of that later, because I do think a little bit of the focus was pulled away from our boy here. Just a little bit this season. Just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of that De Niro right there. A little bit. So that was all going down, and then you got all the Mandalorians led by Bo-Katan out there trying to find their escape and take out some enemies along the way, and trying to make sure that Grogu can get their hands on Din Djarin once again and save him. And as they're making their way through the base and everything like that, Grogu and Din Djarin are making their way towards where we seen those Mandalorian troopers, whatever you want to call them. They were over there defending this room with all these red force field shields or whatever the hell set up, so that way no one can get in there. So Grogu and Din are making their way that way. Bo-Katan and all the rest of the gang are trying to make their way out of there, and they finally do. They get their reinforcements called in. thanks to the armorer and everything like that, and Bo-Katan's homeboy from her clan from before. So they come in hot and heavy with more reinforcements and everything like that. The Halo jump in and everything's going down. And there's a fight, space battles, Return of the Jedi style, baby. We got fights going on in space, fights going on the ground, fights going on, between Din Djarin and Grogu and them. You got fights going on with Bo-Katan, Kryze, and all the other Mandalorians. And then we finally get the big old rematch with Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon, as well as you see on the screen there with her wielding the Darksaber. And I do have to admit, man, Moff Gideon was giving her a run was giving her a run for her money, because he was fucking her up pretty good for the most part, man. Like, she was holding her own. Like, don't get me wrong, Bo-Katan was doing the thing, but she definitely had met her match with that Darksaber, man. He had like this whole double-bladed, double-sided, lightsaber resistant laser sword, not lightsaber things or whatever. He had a double-sided one, man. He's a hard-on for Darth Maul, man. I think he knows about this dude. He has to know. There's too many like call signs and references to him. I can't just be all fan service in my eyes. Something's up with that. I really would like to see that backstory someday, maybe in a novel or something. Get the whole Moff Gideon story. But anyway, yeah. So you got that all going down, and then you got all the Mandalorians out there getting down as well. But you also, more importantly, have Din Djarin and Grogu making their way towards that room with all the force fields and everything. They mow down all these stormtrooper dudes and everything like that. And as they're making their way through and thinking, they're making their way through, they notice that there's all these tanks with these clones, seemingly from all the cloning tech that they were using before, seemingly shows up. And then they find out that, bam, it's a whole bunch of Moff Gideon clones, baby. He done went full on freaking, cloning jutsu and shit like that, like he's over on some Naruto stuff. Hella Moff Gideon clones in there. But due to the fact that the ship explodes later on, none of them end up surviving. But in my mind, since we didn't see any bodies, they could definitely still be out there. But as I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, obviously, you got the confrontation, like I said, with Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon. He ends up giving her a run for her money and hands her ass to her a little bit. And then you got Din Djarin and them making their way in, and as they're making their way through, they end up fighting with more of these Praetorian Guard dudes from Episode 9, seemingly the early days of them and whatnot, and they're getting down with them. And then Grogu, definitely has met his biggest challenge yet, but after IG-12 is destroyed and he's able to get out of the suit itself, and he's able to hop around and really use his force capabilities to the highest potential possible, he's able to take out some of these dudes. And Din Djarin, man, he's kind of knocked out for the count just for a little bit there. Not completely, but definitely got knocked back a little bit. And as things are going on from there, so you get that confrontation with Moff Gideon and Bo-Katan. He ends up winning, seemingly for the meantime. But as they attempt to, and as Din Djarin and Grogu make their way back after they beat up the Praetorian Guards and whatnot, and then it's going to be, him versus Moff Gideon and whatnot. And after the big old explosion is caused on the ship, Moff Gideon seemingly is burned up in the flames, as well as all his clones and all that. And the base just gets into crazy critical condition and has an insane explosion. And all these Imperial forces outside are fighting everyone in the air and everything. And they're getting taken out one by one, slowly but surely. And they end up winning the day, man. And, they have officially reclaimed Mandalore. And things are better than they've ever been before. And that's when we jump on over to this little ceremony with Grogu himself, Din Djarin and whatnot. And Din Djarin's actually the kid from before, Vizsla's kid, I mean. And they don't even address my boy Vizsla, man. They kind of did him dirty on that one. But his kid's there finishing up the ritual, taking the creed and whatnot, since it got interrupted by the giant alligator thing, Godzilla's cousin and shit. So now they're back finishing up his ceremony. And then Din Djarin has Grogu in his arms, and he's like, I nominate him to become the next apprentice officially and to take the creed. And she's like, he can't speak. He can't take the creed, bruh. Calm down. And then she's like, he ain't even freaking related to us technically. And shit like that. And he's like, well, I nominate him to be my son and I adopt him. I'm his father now. And like, all right, this is the way. And if you do that, then it's all good. then eventually he can definitely take that creed, man. Now he actually has a good fair shot, according to our traditions, which apparently they're still holding true to some of those. And then Grogu's like, "Oh shit, man, I was about to become one of y'all." Like, "Oh man, I don't get to join yet. God damn it!" But thanks, Dad. He's all hyped and excited about it. And it's crazy too because the ritual actually reminds me of getting baptized or something like that, which I'm sure was intentional. And let me see, any other big details I'm missing here? Nope, that's pretty much it for the episode, man. Happy ending. Din Djarin wakes up IG-11. He's the marshal on Navarro. Grief Karga officially gives him his land, and you got Grogu and Din Djarin right there in that concept art, as you see, chilling at his new place on Navarro, on his new land, posted up watching his kid play in the yard, man. And that's how we end the episode. That's it for the finale. That's it for season 3 right there. And like I said, just getting into some of my overall thoughts on the season itself, I will say that the season in general I thought was a little bit disappointing. Entertaining, still fun to watch, but it's definitely a step down from the previous seasons in my mind. I definitely think it is the weakest season, without a doubt, of the series of The Mandalorian so far. And everything that really worked and really hit this season really hit. You know what I'm saying? All the stuff they did with the Mandalorian culture, while at times I thought they didn't dig deep enough, when they did do it, when they did give it a chance to shine, when they were highlighting the characters and building to those moments with Bo-Katan, Kryze, and my boy Din Djarin, and especially Grogu as well, when all that stuff was coming to be and getting all this development in time with the Mandalorian culture, and then going back to Mandalore, everything like that was really awesome and really cool. Love the way that they were able to give them all unique designs and were really able to bring that Mandalorian culture to life. It felt like something straight out of Clone Wars and Rebels, but in the best way possible. And it doesn't feel like a cartoon. It feels like true live action form as Star Wars had initially started back in the day. So I loved everything like that. Everything with Bo-Katan Kryze especially. I absolutely loved her character this season. Katie Sackhoff, man, hats off to her. She absolutely killed it in this role. Was always great in the animated formats and everything, but she just fucking killed it in this, man. No doubt for sure, man. Just killed it. Didn't see it much, if any. I don't think we actually saw Pedro Pascal. There's some big controversy going on behind the scenes, apparently. Yada, yada, yada. I like to stay out of the drama until we know what's going on for sure. But apparently there is some drama going on with that. So let's hope, fingers crossed, to get it fixed and we get some more Pedro Pascal up in that season 4. And they can fix some of these mistakes. Because one thing I will say, too, is they just were kind of meandering with the overall plot. And they made some missteps that I feel weren't necessarily the biggest of the franchise at this point or anything like that. Far from the worst thing I've ever seen in Star Wars. But I do think they made some very, silly and very easy to avoid missteps that easily could have been tweaked with some rewrites, and really just structuring the season differently and really keeping a focus on what the main story is, while keeping some of the adventures of the week, making sure that there's characters and things that are introduced in every episode that are very integral and are really carried forward and gives it an overall arc to everything, including the characters and the side characters and everyone that they're introducing in this. I think that was the one core element really missing this season, was keeping that focused storyline and that focused world building that they executed so well in the previous 2 seasons. It was a little bit of a surprise that they weren't able to really keep that same kind of focus. But I mean, hey man, creating this stuff is definitely difficult. So I do want to give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit and, approach it with some grace and some empathy for sure. But I do think they definitely were not digging deep enough into the characters this season overall, where even the ones that they did explore, they could have explored even more. The ones that they didn't explore, they had complete missed opportunities with, like Sasha Banks' character of Casca Reeves, completely underutilized in this. And I get she's a busy woman. I understand she's back in the New Japan Pro Wrestling promotion, doing a thing. Wrestlers work literally almost every single day of the year. So I understand she's a very busy woman between that and everything else in the entertainment and business world that she's dealing with these days. But I do think they definitely underutilized her character big time. I definitely think they could have got more into Vizsla, especially since they did sacrifice that character in episode 7. Spoiler alert if you ain't known already. So I thought they definitely dropped the ball there and didn't give enough of that emotional depth they could have gave to his son, that new character they introduced, and kind of bringing him in as one of the new generations that could have maybe even bonded with Grogu or had more of a connection or even a relationship or some kind of kinship with Grogu, and kind of developing the younger characters in that way, that new generation coming up to kind of lead the charge for Rey's generation in the future of the Star Wars canon and whatnot. So really thought that they did have some missed opportunities there, and just that focus was just not there with the overall plot this season. It just felt like the whole thing with him regaining his honor was just a little bit anticlimactic for sure. And the whole thing of going to Mandalore, like at first initially with the whole thing of they can't go back, did feel a little weird and clunky until we find out why. And even when we found out why, is almost like a plot twist in a way, but not necessarily. It did just feel a little bit wonky. Like, using a Star Wars reference, for those that know, this season felt a little bit McClunky. Still fun, still entertaining. I'll go back to it when I'm doing my full rewatch for season 4 in the future. But overall, I do got to keep it real with y'all and be honest. This is definitely the weakest season of them all. I definitely do have a little bit more issues with it overall as a season, but I definitely enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to revisit it. I still think it's damn good television. I'm probably going to give the season overall a 7.5 out of 10. No less than a 7, but I'm thinking I'm going to settle on a 7.5 because the first 3 to 4 episodes, especially the first 3 episodes, to me were just great, and then the last 2 were just awesome. So to me, I think 5 out of 8 ain't bad, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7.5 out of 10 for season 3. And the overall episode, this one in particular, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Actually, I'm going to give the season a 7, and I'm going to give the actual episode an 8 out of 10, because I will say the show is still solid, still entertaining, still I'm looking very much forward to season 4, but hoping that they can get that a little bit more of a layered storyline, that they keep focus on the characters and everything like that, and give it a slightly bit longer runtime so they can really dig into those characters. You know what I'm saying? But that's pretty much it for me here, y'all. Thank you for staying with me to the end of the video, and thank you for checking this out. That's going to do it for our weekly recaps of The Mandalorian. But we got Secret Invasion coming down the line in June from the MCU realm, and who knows what else we're going to be having in between weekly recaps between now and then. But we definitely got some full seasons of television we're going to be hitting y'all soon with some reviews and things like that. Older stuff, current stuff, everything in between. We got some more niche movie reviews on the way and all that good stuff. So make sure you don't be sleeping on any of that. Evil Dead Rise review dropping this weekend. I'm going to be checking that out literally a day after the recording of this video. So make sure you stay tuned. Don't sleep. Much love. Thank you for watching. And until we see you again, much love.